Welcome to the menu on Native America Calling. I'm Andy Murphy. If the government shutdown continues, money for the federal program that provides food assistance to nearly 42 million low-income Americans will stop this weekend. Some tribes are preparing to help their citizens who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program to feed their families, but aren't sure they can adequately fill the gap. And in Alaska, organizations are making sure the people displaced by recent storms are receiving traditional foods like moose, whale, seal, and salmon. We're back after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Thousands of Native people across the Mountain West are among those who will lose Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, food benefits if the federal government shutdown continues. The Mountain West News Bureau's Daniel Spalding reports tribal officials are concerned about cuts to programs that were already stretched thin.
SNAP will run out of money on November 1st if the shutdown continues, and nearly a quarter of Indigenous households use SNAP benefits, double the national rate. Julie Keller leads food services at Namipu Health on the Nez Perce Reservation in Idaho.
Feeding families is very expensive, and people are struggling to make ends meet, and these programs help people provide basic nutrition for their whole family.
Keller says more tribal members have been signing up to receive food benefits out of fear that they may soon be canceled. 5 states in the Mountain West have issued warnings for SNAP recipients. Some states, like Colorado, are providing emergency funding for alternate food sources. Meanwhile, a group of Democratic leaders in several states are suing the federal government over the suspension of benefits. I'm Daniel Spalding.
The Cherokee Nation declared a food emergency Tuesday due to the federal government shutdown in response to the expected loss of SNAP benefits. The Oklahoma tribe is making more than $6 million in emergency relief funding available. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. explained the tribe's response in a social media post, saying they'll protect those most at risk of hunger.
We will not turn our backs on people in need as the federal government remains gridlocked. Our response may not be perfect, but we will not stand back and watch people suffer.
Other tribes across the country have also declared an emergency due to the federal government shutdown. The Western disaster relief effort has moved to its next phase. Earlier this month, hurricane-force winds and floods forced more than 1,000 people from their homes. Many families were sent to mass shelters in Anchorage. This week, the city has begun to transition them into temporary housing. KNBA's Rhonda McBride visited the Egan Convention Center downtown, where families are preparing to move on.
Little boys and girls are sad. They're homesick.
Tessie Chanarak is one of the counselors from South Central Foundation, watching out for families at the Egan Center. She says counselors have been keeping kids occupied with games, and it's helped that Halloween is around the corner.
You know, Halloween is one of the fun seasons of the year because lots of candy. We got some costumes and we've got some hats and trick-or-treating bags. So anything for the little kids too. So they seem to be more at home than their parents.
Chanarak says at first, when families moved into the shelter, the reality of what they had escaped had not yet sunk in. She saw families look at videos and photos captured on their cell phones over and over, as if to try to understand what they had experienced.
I can't believe the typhoon kicked in. I can't believe our homes floated away. It's like, that really happened. And yesterday, when I was checking with folks, they're crying. They're tired.
Despite that, Chanarak says families have held up remarkably well, but she's glad they'll soon be transferred to temporary housing so they can begin their recovery. She says she's grateful for the elders because they've been a calming influence on everyone.
I really do admire that. That gives me a tool that I can use, taking it one day at a time.
Chanarak wears a pair of angel wings that came from a Halloween costume, known to the kids as Terrific Tessie. She's originally from Tooksuk Bay, one of the communities also in the storm's path. She says she feels honored to be of help as both a counselor and a speaker of the Yupik language. In Anchorage, I'm Rhonda McBride.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Kawanak Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by Sonosky Chambers Law, championing tribal sovereignty and Native American rights since 1976. From opioids litigation to treaty rights to tribal self-governance. With offices in Washington, D.C., New Mexico, California, and Alaska. Sonosky Chambers Law.
Support by Amerind, Indian Country's 100% tribally owned insurance partner. Information on property, liability, workers' compensation, and commercial auto needs at AMERIND.com.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is the menu on Native America Calling, our special feature on Indigenous food sovereignty. I'm Andy Murphy. First, the government shutdown and SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. If the shutdown drags on, the program that provides food to 42 million Americans, including thousands of Native Americans, runs out of money this Saturday. And that raises food security concerns for the most vulnerable populations. And tribes are working to provide a safety net for their citizens. Later in the hour, we'll turn our attention to Alaska, where there's an effort to help residents displaced by the major storms in the wake of Typhoon Halong. Among the emergency relief efforts is a program to provide traditional foods to the families that have lost theirs. Alaska Native organizations and members of the public are stepping up with donations of food like whale, seal, moose meat, and other traditional food items. You can join either of these discussions today by calling 1-800-996-2848. That's also 1-800-99-NATIVE. If the SNAP program runs out of money, how will it affect you? Give us a call. We're at 1-800-996-2848. Joining us now from Atlanta, Georgia, is Carly Griffith-Hotvith. She is the Executive Director of the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative. She's a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Welcome back to the menu, Carly.
Thanks, Andy. Glad to be here.
So what are folks waiting for right now? What decisions need to be made in Washington for SNAP to continue?
So Congress needs to come back into session and work to pass a spending bill. With the current shutdown, as a result of Congress not passing a spending bill by the deadline, there are multiple federal programs that are impacted with a lack of funding. SNAP is one of those programs. SNAP operates on a 30-day cycle, or roughly a monthly cycle, and so new funding injection for SNAP benefits that is supposed to hit in November is not going to happen because of the shutdown.
All right. Is there a viable way for states and tribes and non-governmental organizations to fill that need? I mean, how big of a need is it going to leave?
So SNAP overall is one of the biggest federally funded nutrition programs, and it is one of the few programs where there's no cost share that the states support. All of the benefit funding comes from the federal government. And so that means there's not another pot of money that can, act as an offset or be a supplement when the federal funding runs out. Currently, tribes are not authorized to administer SNAP. There's a statutory provision where that can occur, but a state has to have been declared as failed in administering SNAP. So currently, tribes have limited opportunities to leverage that program in order to fill it in, and so there's a lot of independent tribal funding that many tribes are bringing to the table in order to offset this. States, if they want to dip into other funds to issue supplemental support for SNAP participants, they can do that, but we've definitely heard a lot of tribes that are taking the responsibility to figure out a way to make sure their people are fed, but also tribal organizations and nonprofits are also working to step in to fill the gap as well.
Right. And in a little while, we'll hear from tribal leaders that we also have on the show. We have tribal leaders from Oklahoma and Montana who are joining us today. But Carly, is there another time in recent memory when SNAP was suddenly stopped like this?
No, not really. I mean, the last government shutdown that occurred during the first Trump administration, it did last quite some time, but it wasn't long enough for SNAP benefits to actually be impacted. So we haven't seen a disruption like this in quite some time. However, the disruption in nutrition benefits and access to that is something that was similarly experienced during the COVID pandemic when our supply chains went down. And so it was really, comparable in that manner as far as immediate need that needs to be addressed in a very short time.
Okay. And, going down to the tribal level and tribal community level, how does SNAP affect tribal communities and economies?
Yeah. So there are a lot of tribal citizens that are on SNAP. It's unclear just exactly how many there are. There was a recent rule change that removed the prohibition against identifying somebody by race. So we don't have data collected to indicate just how many Native folks are using SNAP, but we know there's quite a few. When SNAP goes away, that means that folks are going to be looking for what other programs they might be eligible for. And a lot of those people that live on reservations will transfer to the food distribution program on Indian reservations that we colloquially call FDIPR. However, a lot of urban natives or folks that don't live on or near their reservation are not eligible for that food distribution program. And so there is going to be a service gap that needs to be addressed.
Right. And how does SNAP affect tribal economies?
So SNAP implications in tribal economies are huge. We know that Native populations and households are more likely to be food insecure compared to the national average. We also know that the households that are served by SNAP and other nutrition programs frequently have a higher rate of elder participation and children in those households. And so when we're unable to, feed our kids and our elders, we're seeing a lot of disruptions. A lot of folks are having to reevaluate how they're spending their money, and they are having to, decide whether they're going to pay a light bill or another type of utility or pay for food or pay for gas. And so it puts, our tribal economies in a really, really difficult position in order for people just to be able to, afford the expenses of day-to-day living, especially with inflation costs that are going up as well.
All right. So two programs help feed low-income Native Americans, SNAP and FDIPR, the food distribution program on Indian reservations, which isn't affected by the government shutdown. Why is that? And can we maybe see something happening in the future to this program?
Sure. So I will say the caveat is FDIPR is not affected yet. One of the reasons that's different is because SNAP is a monetary benefit that's transferred from the feds to the states to administer on a monthly basis. The food distribution program is not a monetary benefit. It's an actual commodity food benefit. And so that program is administered by the feds, and then the distribution sites are administered by tribes or Indian tribal organizations. And so the way it works is the federal government, through USDA's Agriculture Marketing Service, sources the foods on commodity contracts, but they do that in bulk. And it's usually enough food for, a few months at a time, and then it is distributed to the locations from there. And so there was a letter issued by the Food and Nutrition Service that administers the program through USDA, telling tribes that they could expect the food distribution program foods to be available throughout December. However, they were cautioned to only order enough food for folks or participants that were currently registered in the program. And so that makes it difficult for tribes to be able to anticipate the increased demand from people that are losing SNAP benefits that want to transfer to the FDIPR program. And so we expect to see, some resource scarcity when it comes to food availability based on discouragement from USDA and additional ordering to bulk up to meet the increased demand. and then also the potential for disruption after December.
Got it. All right, and back to SNAP. Overall, this program, this federal program, feeds 42 million Americans. About a third of those are children. Are there any predictions about what the consequences of stopping this program is, even for the short term?
I mean, the fact of the matter is that folks are going to go hungry. Most people that are participating in SNAP use SNAP as their primary food source, even though the abbreviation is a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Most people are not just using SNAP as a supplement. They are using it as their sole source of food income, of the ability to have funding to purchase the food that they need. And so without SNAP and without other viable alternatives, there are folks who are going to be going hungry because of a loss of this funding.
All right. If this is something you are worried about in your Native community, give us a call. We're at 1-800-996-2848. That's also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Carly, how did the COVID pandemic provide any lessons about food access and supply chain that we can, employ right now?
Yeah, it absolutely did. A lot of tribes were impacted by the supply chain disruptions and realized that securing our tribal sovereignty means securing our food sovereignty. We can't be truly sovereign unless we can feed our own people. And so a lot of tribes made investments in food and agriculture systems, including processing facilities, increasing production, and increasing, distribution services. And we're seeing a lot of those tribes that have made those investments are able to leverage them for the benefit of these food shortages that are being experienced. We've heard of tribes that are leveraging their meat processing facilities to support meat distribution for folks that are in need. We also know that the experience of needing to rapidly respond for nutrition support is something that tribes are familiar with and have been able to execute as well.
All right. We'll hear from a councilman over at the Blackfeet Nation after this break. That's something that they're doing. You can join our conversation, listeners. We're at 1-800-996-2848. How is your tribe preparing for SNAP benefits to run out at the end of this week? We're at 1-800-996-2848. Fresh off an Academy Award nomination for his documentary Sugarcane, Julian Brave Noisecat released his memoir, We Survived the Night. In it, he talks about his search to connect with his own identity and grasp his family's history of survival in the face of hardship. Julian Brave Noisecat joins us on the next Native America Calling.
Okay, yedelo husk al stelt al sinto aleni daasti. Tatlano hetani yela nudan dega uxest adanetlaski adel quasti ganadi adahesk agolies de jasuyes de uste to dolce hai. You go to dula to delo ho histe na healthcare.gov/coverage alle 1-800-318-2596. He age to no Medicare ala Medicaid una dalgai.
This is the menu on Native America Calling. I'm Andy Murphy. Millions of Americans will lose their SNAP benefits this weekend if the government shutdown continues. Thousands of Native Americans are among them. If this is something you're concerned about, give us a call and join our conversation right now. We're at 1-800-996-2848. How is your tribe preparing to help its citizens offset the loss of this food assistance? We're at 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from Browning, Montana is Lyle Rutherford. He's a Blackfeet tribal councilman. Welcome to the menu, Councilman Rutherford.
Good morning, Andy, and thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. course. I see the Blackfeet Nation declared a state of emergency yesterday in response to the SNAP crisis. Tell us more about what makes this a crisis and rises to the level of emergency.
Well, currently the Blackfeet Reservation is composed of 1.5 million acres, and we have about 17,000 enrolled members. Of those 17,000 enrolled members, we probably have about 6,000 reside on the Blackfeet Reservation. Currently, we have approximately 3,800 individuals that are on our SNAP program, currently between two counties, one being Glacier and one being Pend Oreille.
All right, so a significant portion, more than half of the population there. Okay. And what are you hearing from citizens about, this deadline coming up this weekend?
Right now, it's just a huge urgency. I mean, we have a lot of our members and such that are kind of in panic mode because they're not knowing what avenue to turn to in regards to tentatively not getting SNAP benefits. And I think you've had a little conversation before that, this is supposed to be a secondary opportunity for food sources where a lot of our Native American populations uses their primary source.
Got it. All right. Even before the government shutdown, how have Blackfeet citizens been affected by the way of the economy and different changes in politics? Is that something that's also sort of exacerbating the issue with food security here?
It is. So currently, because we live on a reservation and such, we have the Indian Interior Services. So we have an IHS facility here, a hospital, and we have the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and we also have the Bureau of Land Management and Bureau of Reclamation. So it's really, really affected. So when the president generally decided to do a shutdown in Congress, we actually have those workers right now that are coming to the tribe and saying, hey, what do we do for food? We're not getting paychecks and that. So the good thing is we already have a commodity program and such, subsidy program, but we also have a food bank also that's kind of assisting. And so right now we have both of them kind of working together, kind of figuring out solutions in regards to these issues.
Okay. Among other things, the tribe is looking to provide meat, protein for people who might need it. Tell us more about it.
So it was a discussion with council on that because we live just east of Glacier National Park, so we live in a mountainous area, forested area. We currently have a herd of buffalo, around just over 800 animals as of right now. So in the past, we've always used those, just the animals in that in regards to a calling basis when we have major ceremonies and such. So the council sat down this past week and decided that we'd tentatively call about 15 animals to kind of help out with this shortfall in protein supplement. And so with that being said, we did a resolution, put a comment, or actually a little brochure out to the people, and notification that says, we're here to tentatively also assist with the protein supplementation, but we're also in discussions on tentatively providing, also looking at extending our treaty rights or exercising our treaty rights within the Yellowstone area and such, and maybe sending some hunting parties to harvest some elk.
Okay. I read.
That area.
All right. I read about a little over a dozen bison are going to be harvested. Has that happened already?
So currently, actually, we have about, I would say about 6 animals that have been harvested as of right now. All 6 animals are right now at the processing plants and such. And then based on the availability, as these animals tentatively get processed and such and packaged, we will pick them up and then tentatively bring other animals for processing.
All right. And the elk hunt, how is that going to take place?
So that's being coordinated by our Fish and Game Department in cooperation with our Emergency Declaration staff, or IC staff. So currently that will start taking place, I believe, this weekend. We currently have some game wardens down in tentatively the Yellowstone area, tentatively scouting out where there might be some elk populations. And in turn, we'll send some of our people with our Fish and Game Department to tentatively go down and see what they can do about, see if they can harvest us some elk as well.
All right. What kind of conversations are you having with maybe other tribes and other tribal leaders about weathering this storm?
In the tribal networking that I've actually get emails almost on a day-to-day basis in regards to the declaration of emergencies and the urgency of what's currently going on, not just in the state of Montana, but also Washington, Wyoming, New York, North Carolina. And it seems like we're all kind of the same situation. Currently in Montana, and that we've actually been working with our local agency, the Rocky Mountain Tribal Leaders. We did agree to tentatively sign an agreement to tentatively send to the governor to look at, see if he would tentatively fund the SNAP program this past week, which unfortunately kind of failed, but keeping those camaraderie and working abilities, working with other tribes as of right now.
Okay. I want to go back to our guest, Carly Griffith-Hotvet. She is the executive director of the Indigenous Food and Agriculture Initiative. Carly, what are you seeing in terms of advocacy from tribal leaders and politicians on keeping funding coming for SNAP?
So we're seeing advocacy, especially within social media pushes, encouraging Congress to open back up and to get a spending bill passed. Because it's not just SNAP that's being impacted. There are many other, federal programs that are impacting furloughed employees and service delivery to tribes. And so we're seeing that consistently, petitioning their congressional delegations, but also the folks that are sitting on, the important committees that can really work to bring that issue to the forefront. We know that some tribes have been reaching out and asking Speaker Johnson to actually get Congress back in session because they had been in hiatus for so long.
Got it. All right. I want to move on to Oklahoma right now. Joining us from Lawton, Oklahoma is Forrest Tatanapa. He's the chairman of the Comanche Nation. Welcome to the menu, Chairman Tatanapa.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me here.
Of course. So the Comanche Nation tribal government is stepping up to help its own citizens if SNAP runs out of funds this weekend. The first way is through a voucher provided by the tribe to eligible citizens. Tell us about that. What will that voucher do?
There'll be either just a regular gift card or an e-gift card that will be given out to either those that are affected by the government furlough or those that are unable to access SNAP. And it's nationwide, so anyone. Our home state is obviously Oklahoma, but any one of our members in any state where SNAP benefits will no longer be available will be eligible. The gift cards are for $75 for single persons or couples, and then if your household has 3 or more people, you will get a $150 gift card. And right now, we're starting with one gift card. We're going to see how long this lasts. But right now, we're just starting with one gift card, and we've already had a huge response from people. So I think, within the first couple of weeks, we'll probably get through all of the applications that we've already gotten, assuming that SNAP benefits are indeed shut off this weekend.
Okay. At what point did you as a tribal leader start looking at, finding these funds to help people if SNAP benefits run out?
Mostly as soon as I heard that it was a possibility. As soon as it was announced, I was concerned, and then there was a lot of tribal members that had reached out, and they were very anxious about what would happen with their benefits. So we kind of immediately got a plan going, and we're using our tribal funds, which is, on one hand, it's a blessing that we have them available to use. On the other hand, it is somewhat frustrating because it is the federal government's obligation to provide for its people, just like we provide for our people. Our members are U.S. citizens too, and so the federal government should be taking care of them. So when they're not, we're stepping up, and we're happy to step up, and we're proud that we are stepping up, but at the same time, we are having to reallocate and redirect tribal funds that would have gone to other services and other programs. So, we will have to tighten our belts in other areas.
Okay. In Oklahoma and the Comanche Nation, where do most citizens buy their groceries, and how will the SNAP program running out of money? How will that affect where folks buy their groceries and the economy there?
I'm sure it'll have a huge impact. I mean, there's a few different places people get food. There's a lot of our members live kind of in small communities surrounding Lawton, Oklahoma. And so either those that have kind of more mobility and are able to drive, they'll drive to Lawton and they'll go to Walmart. If they don't have as much mobility, they're more, they can't drive that far, then they'll just stay in their local community, and then they'll go to usually like Dollar General, or there's a couple local grocery store chains. Williams is one of them. But certainly all of those stores are going to feel an impact from all of the citizens of Oklahoma not having their benefits. But, again, we're going to offset that with our own travel money a little bit for our members. We're also, one thing that's been good to see is that the local community has kind of, banded together, and there are a lot of people making donations to like food pantries in the city of Lawton. We started our own food pantry, so there's a lot of people making donations to that as well. But, the economic impact of the state is going to be huge.
Got it. Speaking of the state, is the state helping out in any way?
No.
Got it. You've also coordinated a special deer hunt to stock food pantries. How does that work?
We are just exercising our own jurisdiction, our own sovereignty. The hunt is on tribal lands. One thing that I guess that's the state is helping with, you could say, in a way, is just not making a bad situation worse. There's a lot of antagonism that exists between the state and tribal governments in Oklahoma, and hunting was a focal point recently because there was an announcement that was made that state law applies, and that's just legally incorrect. Like the state does not have jurisdiction to regulate hunting by tribal members on tribal land. And so that was causing a lot of frustration. But notwithstanding that, we decided we wanted to do this. We kind of gave a heads up to the local game warden, and to their credit, they said, we're not going to get in your way. We understand what's going on. It's for a good cause for this food pantry. So we were able to avoid kind of, I guess, the antagonism that exists at the level of the governor's office with these local officials. So I am very grateful to them, and like I said, I think the local community has really banded together, and that's one of the ways that it happened. But yeah, we're just, as a tribal government, issuing authorizations to our members to hunt on land within our jurisdiction, and so we can start the firearm season sooner. It wouldn't start for another few weeks under state law, but we're authorizing firearm hunting for deer and elk on our own tribal land, and so we're going to pay for it to be processed. And we worked out, again, the local community has been great and very understanding and supportive, and so one of our tribal members owns and operates meat processing plant, and so he generously offered to give us a discount, and so we're getting discount price processing, and then we're just getting, basically ground meat and 1 pound tubes, and we're stocking and going to hand that out to tribal members that are in need. Another thing that we're doing to stock is that every year we get bison from the local wildlife refuge, and we have a standing agreement that we've worked out with another local tribe, the Cheyenne Arapaho tribe, because they have a bison herd. So usually we get bison early in the year from them, and then we kind of pay them back in kind with bison that we get from the refuge. But this year we got the bison a few months ago, and we were going to pay them back, but they said, in light of everything that's going on, you just keep that bison for yourself, process it, and stock your food pantry. So we're grateful to the, Cheyenne Arapaho tribe also for that in donating those bison to us.
All right. Seems like there's been a lot of preparation, a lot of coordination, and connections made already. Did the last government shutdown provide some insights that are paying off now?
Maybe with the other leaders, I wasn't in office during the last government shutdown, so for me, it's just been going at it. Just kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But fortunately, everyone, whether it's local government, other tribes, surrounding tribes, the local business community, everyone is willing and to help however they are able, because everyone understands the gravity of the situation. I mean, not being able to access food is a big deal for an area where there was already a lot of food insecurity. For a lot of working people, the economy and inflation was already bad enough, and then to put this on top of that, I mean, everyone appreciates how much of a struggle it's going to be. So everyone really has come together. So it's been smooth from that perspective. And again, others may have learned from the last government shutdown, but for me, this is my first one in office, so I'm figuring it out as we go.
All right. If this is a worry that you're having right now, running out of food, if SNAP runs out of money on Saturday, November 1st, give us a call. We're at 1-800-996-2848, or leave a comment on our social media pages. We're going to be back right after this break. You are listening to The Menu on Native America Calling, which is our special feature on Indigenous food news and stories. I'm Andy Murphy. We're going to be right back after this break.
Support by the American Indian College Fund. The American Indian College Fund provides millions of dollars of scholarships to thousands of Native students every year. Tribal citizens of every age and experience are eligible. The deadline for applications is May 31st, and you can find everything you need to apply at collegefund.org. That's collegefund.org, or by phone at 800-766-FUND. Education is the answer.
You're listening to The Menu on Native America Calling. I'm Andy Murphy. Thousands of Alaska Native people remain displaced by the damage caused by the storms from Typhoon Halong in Alaska. Floods and strong winds destroyed hundreds of homes and other structures along Alaska's west coast. An organized effort is underway to provide traditional foods to those now staying in shelters across the state. You can join our conversation by calling 1-800-996-2848. How important are your traditional foods in times of emergency? We're at 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from Anchorage, Alaska is Kelsey Keegan Wallace. She is the president and CEO of the Alaska Native Heritage Center. She's Yupik and Irish. Welcome to The Menu, Kelsey.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you for joining. So after a disaster, relief supplies typically come in the form of canned food and other non-perishable items. Why put in the effort to provide food like moose meat and seal and whale? Why is that important?
Yeah, thank you for your question. When the typhoon hit several weeks ago, I'm originally from Southwest Alaska, and so it hit very close to home. And a lot of my relations were sharing about how, it wasn't the physical things so much that they were concerned about losing. It was all of the traditional foods that, they had just harvested a lot of berries and put away fish from the summer season. And when you're talking about, this unimaginable loss, there's also this unimaginable loss of connection to our foods. And so, just as someone who comes from Southwest Alaska, who, is an Alaska Native person who knows the importance of our traditional Native foods and how they connect us to each other and they connect us to the land and the waters. And there's also like an emotional connection because you have spent so much time harvesting foods and fishing for your family and sharing with your community. And so we really wanted to create a space and a partnership through the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium to ensure that those relatives who are here in Anchorage have access to our, what we call in Yupik, our Yuchtak foods or our native foods. And so, yeah, the importance is, it all basically stems down to access to foods that nourish us in other ways beyond just physical nourishment.
Tell us a little bit more about these traditional foods. What kinds of foods are we talking about?
When we put the call out on social media, this has really been pretty grassroots. We put the call out on social media that we are accepting donations of Alaska Native traditional foods. And the community has just been so incredible from across the state, right? Sending in frozen fish of all kinds, fish heads, fish bellies, fish eggs, fillets of fish, so salmon, whitefish, berries, a bunch of stew meat. So there's moose meat, there's tutu or caribou, various frozen types of meat. We even got a pretty large shipment in from the North Slope of monk duck and tutu or caribou. There's some herring eggs. I know there's some seal meat that's being processed. There's also a couple of seals that are being flown in. So the support to be able to feed our relatives has really been incredible. A bunch of different types of foods. We're also accepting donations of frozen goods to be able to make soup, to be able to make other foods and dishes that our people are accustomed to.
All right. I was looking for somebody to come on the show to help talk about this effort, and I reached out to a friend of mine in Anchorage, and she actually responded right away with a picture of a whole bunch of reindeer meat from Nunavut that she was preparing for some of the evacuees. Kelsey, what does distribution look like there in Anchorage? Is it frozen distribution or meals and hot meals and stuff like that?
Yeah, so it's pretty twofold. The intent of gathering these donations, number one, is to ensure when we have community events that we plan, will specifically for the evacuees who are here in Anchorage, we will be able to have space to feed them. It is an act of love and generosity to be able to feed and cook for folks. And so understanding the importance of, we've just had so many individuals, aunties and cousins who have reached out to me personally and to our staff asking, can I cook for them? So just understanding that there is a desire to feed our community members and our relatives who are displaced here in Anchorage. So that's one way that these traditional foods are going to be utilized. And then the other way that the foods are going to be distributed is through family packs. So right now we're in the gathering phase. We do have a pretty large walk-in freezer. Some would say it's your dream freezer for a Native person because there's so many great foods in there. But the distribution is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. We're just preparing the foods this week to be able to put into family packs. And then we're waiting to work with, other agency partners like the state, the municipality, to identify where evacuees are being sheltered now that they are moving out of the shelters and are in these mid to long-term housing situations. And so wanting to make sure that they have access to kitchens and such to be able to cook their own foods. So the distribution will look a little bit twofold. One, is through feeding our community directly, and then 2, distribution of family packs.
Okay. Remind us, I mean, we did a show earlier about, the evacuation efforts and how folks are being affected by, the storms after Typhoon Halong. But where are where were they evacuated from, and how long do we expect folks to be living in shelters and, like you said, midway housing?
That is pretty unclear as far as I'm concerned. And what I suggest and recommend is just keeping in contact and keeping updated through the state of Alaska's SEOC and through the municipality of Anchorage's communication channels.
Got it. You were mentioning, food is coming from all over the state, but can you be a little bit more specific? Where are some of these donations coming from? What kind of Alaska Native communities and organizations are donating food?
It has been incredible. We have received a very, very large shipment from folks in the North Slope area of mung duck and whale meat and quack and tutu. We've also received a pretty incredible donation of seals from Southeast Alaska. And then there are individuals from Copper Center who sent in a pretty large shipment of fish. And then, Southeast Alaska, I know we're working with the tribe or a couple of tribes down there to ensure that we can get some herring eggs sent up here. So it really is, spanning across the state as far as support goes, and the donation efforts really are statewide.
Got it. There's an Alaska Native tradition in villages of sharing the bounty. Is that something that carries through to these more urban areas where some food donations might be coming from?
Yeah, of course, in Fairbanks, people still have access to hunting. In the south central area of Alaska, people still have access to hunting and fishing and gathering. So it really doesn't matter where, if you are in an urban location, if you're in the village, just having access to our traditional foods. And it is just one of our Alaska Native values to be able to share what we have. Because at the end of the day, giving really does make us richer. That's one of our Alaska Native values, and it has been really beautiful to see the community throughout the state of Alaska come together to be able to support our Elaks, or our relatives that are located here in Anchorage, especially during a really hard time of transition. And I also have to give my appreciation and extend my appreciation to our partners at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium for, our efforts working alongside one another as organizations and as peoples, just to make sure that whether our relatives were located inside of the shelter or whether they were not in the shelter or are not in the shelter, they do have access to traditional foods. And then just also, lifting my hands up to other organizations like South Central Foundation, Cook Inlet Housing Authority, and other organizations that are really, really stepping in to ensure that our people are taken care of in a great way, but also in a way that is culturally grounded and is wrapped in community.
Okay. You mentioned, these hard times, being evacuated, living in a totally different space. Can you talk more about how traditional foods adds to a person's sense of well-being, and how do traditional foods add to your own well-being, Kelsey?
The act of fishing and being able to, or hunting or gathering, whether that's plants, whether that's berries, it really is a connection to, like I shared before, it's a connection to the land, it's a connection to the waters, it's a connection to each other, whether we come from different regions. throughout Alaska. You know, one of my coworkers was just sharing with me that we've heard from folks to be able to support this food donation drive from Bristol Bay, the Tabona Foundation, See Alaska, and Southeast. And it really is this shared connection to our traditional foods that not unites us, but really does connect us to one another, no matter if we come from different geographic areas throughout Alaska. And then just personally, you know, I grew up on my yuktuk foods. My kids' favorite meal is seal oil and dried pike with some herring eggs on the side and some soy sauce. And so it really is this intergenerational connection that we have with our elders and with our community and with our youth when we're talking about these traditional foods, and the act of, you know, teaching how to go and fish and how to share your first catch. It's more than just a nourishment that we receive physically. It's a spiritual connection, it's an emotional connection, and it's a way that we're able to connect to one another in good relations of taking care of one another.
All right. How long do you think you guys can keep this up? I mean, some people are going to be displaced for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. You know, and I know a lot of organizations and individuals are in this same space too, where we're kind of building the kayak as we're going, as we're paddling. And so the Heritage Center really is a space that is first and foremost dedicated to our community, ensuring that we're able to open our doors to our community and to visitors from across the world to come and learn about Alaska Native peoples and learn about Alaska Native cultures and our traditions. And one of my privileges as being the president and CEO is being able to work alongside an incredible team in navigating what that looks like and what that looks like to serve our community. And so as long as the need is there, we're going to continue showing up in that way and in a capacity that we are able to. But in the immediate future, you know, we've got this large freezer van here on site at the Heritage Center that is filling up pretty quickly. And so we don't have a determined end date yet, but as long as the need is there, we are going to continue showing up for our community in ways that we're able to.
All right. What are some food items or things you might need from people who might be interested in donating to this effort here?
I heard specifically from the Kipnuk tribe that they are missing herring eggs. So if there's anybody listening on the line who's got some spare herring eggs that you'd love to share, you know, please get in contact with our team at 907-330-8000. You can also check us out on social media to see of ways that you're able to come and drop off or to ship items here. But there really is no specific item. We're open to receiving any traditional Alaska Native foods that is frozen. So anything from, you know, caribou meat to moose meat to berries, seal oil. I even saw there was some tutu fat in there, some caribou fat in the freezer. Fish of all kinds, right? Salmon, whitefish. So there really isn't anything that we are like, you know, this is what we need. We're just knowing that our Ilaks, you know, and me as a Native person, we are grateful for anything that we receive.
Got it. All right, we'll put that number and any helpful links on our website too, nativeamericacalling.com. Well, that is the end of our conversation today. I'd like to say thank you to our guests we heard from today. Carly Griffith Hotfit, Comanche Nation Chairman Forrest Tatanapa, Blackfeet Tribal Councilman Lyle Rutherford, and Kelsey Keegan Wallace. We're back tomorrow where we will be talking to writer and Oscar-nominated filmmaker Julian Brave Noisecat about his new memoir. I'm Andy Murphy.
The Association on American Indian Affairs invites all to Tribal Museums Day, December 6th through December 12th. Tribal museums may offer no-cost or reduced admission, gift shop discounts, art markets, and live cultural demonstrations. Tribal Museums Day honors diverse Native nations as the experts of their own cultures. You can find a map of tribal museums and more at indian-affairs.org/Tribal Museums Day. The association supports this show.
Kilamik, Ikayominarasi, Okadilugu, Indian healthcare provider, Elitrifsaukufsi, breast cancer screening option, Aperhutakawsi, Naka visitor Lugu healthcare.gov/coverage, Naka caller Lugu 1-800-318-2596. Unakaira Center for Medicare and Medicaid Service.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Quantic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.